Good evening, everybody. It's Mark, your educator, back once again, and I would like to welcome you all back for lesson 2 in your diploma in English for beginners, guys. So we have a fantastic lesson set out for you today, and it's all about talking about now. So we are going to be learning how to talk about routines and schedules, your job, and what you do at the weekend. So we have a lot of students here today, and I know some of you were not with us for lesson 1. So for anyone who is attending their first live lesson with us today, I want to say a big hello and a big welcome to Shaw Academy. You will quickly learn how things work. All you need to know now is that you use the chat box in the bottom right of your window to interact with me and the team. My name, for anyone who's new, is Mark, and I am the course educator. So before we move on, let's have a quick look at what we learned in lesson 1, a reintroduction to the English language. So we looked at the different parts of speech, we quickly covered the different tenses, we explored auxiliary verbs, and you gained confidence with questions and negatives. And as always, we honed your spoken English with a section about sounding polite, okay? What about today's lesson? Well, today's lesson is talking about now, where you will explore the different present tenses. You will develop your expressions of frequency. We will build your vocabulary, and we're going to look at free time activities. You will learn about stative and active verbs and the difference between the two. And you'll be introduced to passive constructions. And as always, we'll finish with a summary, a look at the next lesson, and the question and answers round. So without further ado, let's begin today's webinar, and let's start off by looking at the present tenses. Now, as I showed you all in lesson 1, there are 4 different present tenses. We've got the present simple, the present continuous, the present perfect, and the present perfect continuous. However, for the purpose of today's lesson, we are only going to focus on 2 of these, the present simple and the present continuous. So, let's begin by looking at the present simple, the easiest tense of them all. Now, this could just be a refresher for a lot of you. This is still quite basic, and we are going to build up to the harder stuff. So just keep with it and use it as a refresher. So, we use the present simple to talk about a habit, a routine, a scheduled event, or a general truth. Now, let's look at the form of the present simple. We have our subject, I, you, he, she, Mark, the student, the dog, the car, whatever the subject is. Then we've got our verb, which we keep in the infinitive. And remember that we add an S or an ES for the third person. And the third person is he, she, or it. So, if I say, I walk, then for the third person, it's he walks, she walks, it walks. So, let's look at some examples of the present simple. I eat chocolate a lot. He goes to work by train. The meeting starts at 8 o'clock. Ireland have a brilliant football team. And that is, of course, completely true. Absolutely 100% true. Ireland have a brilliant football team. So that is a general truth. Let's look at the difference between these sentences. I eat chocolate a lot. That is a habit. He goes to work by train. That's a routine. The meeting starts at 8 o'clock. That is a scheduled event. And Ireland have a brilliant football team. That's a general truth. Of course it is. Now, what about negatives and questions? I do not eat chocolate a lot. Now, we saw in lesson 1 that to make a negative, we add in the word not after the auxiliary. So, I do not eat chocolate a lot. He doesn't go to work by train. So, he doesn't go to work by train. Does the meeting start at 8 o'clock? So we've got a question now. And remember, with a question, we start the sentence with the auxiliary. Does the meeting start at 8 o'clock? Do Ireland have a good football team? So it's a question. Do Ireland have a good football team? Okay. Now, Hector has a very good question there. He says, why is the example Ireland have a brilliant football team and not Ireland has a brilliant football team? Well, that's very simple, Hector. It depends how you look at the noun Ireland. If you are looking at Ireland as a country, then it is, of course, a thing. And it would be Ireland has a brilliant football team. But if you look at Ireland as a group of people, then it would be they. Okay, so it depends how you look at the noun. It's the same, we call it a group noun. And it's the same with team. Think of the word team. You can say the team are late because it's a group of people, or you can say the team is late because it is, when you think of it as one singular team. Okay? So, with group nouns like that, you can look at them in two different ways. Yes, Sarah, Ireland is a group noun here. So it all depends how you are looking at it. If you're looking at it as Ireland as one entity or Ireland as a group of people. Exactly, Yusuf. So the two ways are both true. Now, let's move on to the present continuous. And this is used to talk about something happening right now, or a long action in progress, or something in the near future. So, let's look at the form. We have the subject, I, you, he, she, Ireland, dog, the car, whatever your subject is. Then we have our verb to be, and then we have our action verb, and we add ing. Okay? So, remember our verb to be is am, are, or is. So let's look at some examples. You are listening to me. So all of you are listening to me. It's happening right now. The students are enjoying my webinar. Of course you are. The students are enjoying my webinar. It's happening right now. Tom is studying in Trinity College. That is a long action that is in progress now. Okay? So, it's been happening for a while and will happen for a bit longer. So, Tom is studying in Trinity College. It doesn't mean he is there right now, but at this point in time, he is studying in Trinity College. I'm visiting my parents this weekend. Something in the near future. I'm visiting my parents this weekend. And we will look at the future tenses more in lesson 5. Now let's look at the negatives and questions. You are not listening to me. So again, we have an auxiliary verb in this tense. So we just add not. You are not listening to me. And this can be contracted in two different ways. We can contract you are to your and say you're not listening to me now. Or you can contract are not and then it becomes you aren't. So both of these are correct. It's completely up to you if you want to use either one. Salam, Trinity College is the name. It's the name of a university. Trinity College is the name of a university here in Dublin. Okay? So it's a name. Now, what about a question? Is Tom studying in Trinity College? So we start with the auxiliary verb to be. Is Tom studying in Trinity College? Am I visiting my parents this weekend? Okay, am I visiting my parents this weekend? Again, auxiliary at the start for a question. Now, sometimes these tenses can get confusing for people. So I always find with my students that they understand it a lot better when it's put in front of them visually. So let's look at this timeline. And on this timeline, we have the past, the present, and the future. Okay? So here we are right now, the present. Now, let's look at the present simple. And let's look at one use for it. A fact or a general truth. So, something that is true. That means it was true in the past, it is true now, and it will be true in the future. It is a fact all of the time. For example, burgers taste good. Okay? Even if it is your own opinion, you still use the present simple. Burgers taste good. Now, next up for the present simple, we have routines or recurring actions. So, something that happens all of the time. For example, I walk to work every day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I walk to work every day. Okay? It's a routine. It's a recurring action. Now, what about the present continuous? Where does this fit? Well, the first use is for something that's happening right now. So, like I said, you are listening to me. Something that's happening right now. Or a long action that is in process at the moment. For example, you are taking a course with Shaw Academy. So, it is 4 weeks long. It is happening now and has been happening for a while and will be happening for a while. A long action that's in process. You are taking a course with Shaw Academy. Now, let's look at how we can use these present tenses. So, this guy is saying, what do you do? Now, who can tell me what that question means? So that is something we use in conversation. It's a phrase we use in conversation. What do you do? So, can anyone tell me what this means? So this is something that it is conversational. Exactly. Maria, Sharif, Jerome, very good. Excellent work, guys. It means, what is your job? Okay, it's how we ask about someone's job. What do you do? If someone said to me, what do you do? I would say, I am a teacher. Okay, I work at Shaw Academy. So, what do you do means, what is your job? Now, let's look at some answers here and watch how we use the present simple and the present continuous. I work in an IT company in Munich. Okay, what is IT? Internet technologies or information technologies. I apologize. I'm not very good. I'm not very good at IT, as you can imagine. So, I work in an IT company in Munich. So that is the present simple. I work. I am a nurse in the local hospital. So this lady's saying, I am a nurse, present simple, in the local hospital. Now, what is a nurse? A nurse is the person who works in a hospital and helps the doctors. I'm working in sales at the moment. Present continuous. I am working in sales at the moment. I am a student. I am studying in the US. So, if you are in school or college or university, then you are a student. So he's using present simple, I am a student, and then present continuous, I am studying in the US. I am a website designer. I work for Shaw Academy. So this guy works here at Shaw Academy and he's a website designer. I am a teacher. I teach PE. So this guy is a teacher and he teaches PE. What do we think PE is, guys? Who can tell me what PE is? What it stands for? It's an abbreviation and it stands for something. PE. Exactly, the first person I see is Waleed. It is physical education. Exactly, in school, physical education. He teaches PE. And finally, we have this lady here, and she's using the negative. I don't work anymore. I am retired. Okay, I don't work anymore. I am retired. And retired is when you are finished working. You do not work anymore. So whether you're old or you're sick and you can't work anymore, that's called retired. Okay, so lots of good vocabulary for all of you there. Now let's have a look at a question to make sure that you are all keeping up with me. So which of these sentences is incorrect, guys? Which of these is incorrect? The children has walked to school. The children are in school. The children are walking to school. The children have been to school. So which of these is incorrect? Answers coming in already. Sharif, Ina, Ibrahim, Mahmoud, Dimitar, Shaima, Amani. Too many answers coming in to name you all. Noah, Ingrid. It is, of course, sentence number 1. The children is they. So it should not be has. It should be the children have walked to school. Okay? The children have walked to school. It is not the third person, so we do not use has. So well done to everyone who got that correct. There's far too many names for me to mention everyone, but you know who you are, and there's still answers coming in. Now that we have looked at the present tenses, let's look at some frequencies, guys. Now, don't worry about what frequencies means at the moment. Let's look at a conversation here. How often do you play football? So we saw in lesson 1 when we looked at questions that how often refers to frequencies. Okay, exactly. Anoka says once a week. Exactly. So when we ask a question starting with how often, it's asking about frequencies. How many times? Exactly, Sharif. So let's look at some answers for this question. How often do you play football? I usually play football at the weekend. I play twice a week. I never play football. Sometimes I play football in the evening. I play football every day. Now, look at those different answers. And what are we using to express frequency? There you are. All of those words highlighted in red are terms of frequency. Usually, twice a week, never, sometimes, every day. Okay? They are all frequencies. And we can see that we use them with the present simple. I usually play. I play. I never play. Sometimes I play. We use them with the present simple. Now, let's look at some more examples. Do you swim often? Okay, so we can also finish a question with the word often. Do you swim often? It's the exact same as asking, how often do you swim? Do you swim often? And of course, this word swim, we should all know what swimming is. So this is the verb to swim. Okay, just in case any of you did not know. Now, let's look at some example answers. I always swim at the weekend. I go swimming once a week. I rarely go swimming. I often swim in the evening. I regularly visit the local swimming pool. Okay, so they are different examples. Sala, frequencies means how often something happens. Okay, so how often something happens. So this is the examples that we are looking at. So let's look at some more examples. Now, look at the first one here, always. And imagine this sentence. I always walk to work. What does that mean? I always walk to work. It means 100% of the time I walk to work. I always walk to work. And we have different expressions of frequency for how strong they express the frequency. From 100%, I always walk to work, down to 0%, I never walk to work, and everything in between. I usually walk to work. I sometimes walk to work. I rarely walk to work. Okay, so you can think of it as 100%, 75%, 50%, 25%, and 0%. I always walk to work, I never walk to work. And there are other examples also, guys. So we have normally, which is the same as usually. We have regularly, which is also the same as usually. We have often, and I can see people asking about the pronunciation of this. Some people pronounce the T and some people do not. Some people say often and some people say often. So it's completely down to your own pronunciation. Occasionally means sometimes, and this one here, seldom. Seldom is the same as rarely. Okay, seldom. I seldom walk to work. It means the same as I rarely walk to work. So those are our expressions of frequency, guys. Now, let's have a look at a question to make sure you're all keeping up with me. So which would be the best sentence to use if you work a night shift once a month? Okay, so you work a night shift once a month. I always work nights. I regularly work nights. I never work nights. I rarely work nights. I often work nights. So which of these would you use if you work a night shift once a month, guys? And the answers are flying in already. Brilliant work, Mahmoud, Ramona, Magdalena, Hadil, Amir, Donia. Fantastic work, guys. Walid, Florina, Sophie. That's fantastic. It's, of course, number 4. I rarely work nights. So it does not happen very often. I rarely work nights. Okay, once a month. Now that we have our frequencies, we can start to look at some vocabulary building, guys. And for this lesson, our vocabulary building is free time activities. So what you do in your free time. So let's look at some examples. So we've got our lady here asking, what do you do in your free time? Let's look at some answers now. I love playing with my daughter. She is 1. Okay, I love playing with my daughter. She is 1. We go cycling every weekend. So there's our frequencies. Every weekend. We go cycling every weekend. I read a lot. I'm reading a great book at the moment. Look here, present simple, I read a lot. And then present continuous, I am reading a great book at the moment. He always plays his guitar. So, talking about this guy here, he always plays. We have an S because it's the third person, he. He always plays his guitar. And then this guy is saying, I love music. Okay, present simple, I love music. Now, let's look at these in a little bit more detail. So, what do you do when you aren't working? So, free time means when you aren't working. So, you can ask it both ways. What do you do in your free time? What do you do when you aren't working? Now, let's look at some examples of free time activities and pay attention to the verbs that we use, okay? The phrasal verbs that we use. So, with sports, it's play. So like we saw earlier, I play football, I play golf. Now let's look at some other sports, guys. So we have rugby, and there is a rugby ball there. So for any of you guys from South Africa or Australia or New Zealand, you all know about rugby. And of course you all know that Ireland has the best rugby team. Okay? So that is rugby. Then we have football or soccer, which we know. Tennis. We have cricket. So all of you Indian students out there and the Pakistani students and the English students as well, you love to play cricket. Then we have basketball, we have chess, and we have video games. So with all of these we use play. Okay, I play rugby, I play soccer, I play tennis, I play video games. Now let's look at some other free time activities. Go to the gym. Okay, when we talk about the gym, we say go to the gym. So, what do you do in your free time? I go to the gym. I cook. So, that is our verb. I cook. I like to cook food. Or relax. Everyone likes to relax. So what do you do in your free time? I relax. I take pictures. So if you enjoy photography, I take pictures in my free time. I go camping. So when you go out to the forest and you camp in a tent, in my free time I go camping. I know for all of the French students, camping is very big in France. Yes, Salah, rugby looks kind of like American football, but it is different. It is different. That can be your homework, Salah. Go and look up what rugby is. Then we have go on the internet or surf the web. Okay, so look at that verb, surf. That's an unusual verb to use, but that is the phrasal verb we use when we talk about the internet like this. We say, I surf the web. In my free time, I surf the web. Or you draw or paint. So lots of people draw or paint. And I can see Walid there saying that he plays a musical instrument. And that's what we have next. You play the guitar. When we talk about instruments, we use the verb play. And let's look at some other instruments. So we all know what a guitar is. Then we've got the drums. We have the violin, the piano. You should all know what a piano is. The trumpet, the flute, and the keyboard. So the keyboard, or like the electronic piano. Okay, so the keyboard. Now let's look at some of them in use. So what do you do when you aren't working? I relax at home after work. Very simple. I think everyone does that. I relax at home after work. Unless you have young children, then you probably never get to relax. So, I relax at home after work. I play tennis at the weekend. I surf the web most evenings. Okay, I surf the web most evenings. And yes, Mahmoud, you can say I surf the internet. You can, of course. You can say I surf the internet or I surf the net. Hassam is saying I watch documentaries. Fantastic. I watch documentaries. Or I watch TV. I watch television. Okay. Malak is asking me what I do in my free time. I go to the gym, Malak. In my free time, I go to the gym and I relax. Now, in all these sentences, we have used our verbs here. I relax, I play, I surf. But we can also add in these verbs, these helping verbs, like, love, or other verbs of that nature. For example, I love relaxing at home. And look how it changes the sentence. Instead of I relax at home, we say I love and we add an ing. I love relaxing at home. Exactly. Walid is saying like or love, we make it a gerund. So when we add an ing, we call this a gerund. I like playing tennis at the weekend. I hate surfing the web. So if you don't like something, I hate surfing the web. I hate surfing the web. So Yusuf is asking what etc. means. It just means and so on. It means there are more examples, but I'm not going to list all of them. Okay? So that's what etc. means. It means there is more examples, but I will not list them all. Yes, Mohammed, you can say browse the web also. That's a very good phrasal verb to use. Browse the web. Exactly. Lots of people are typing in what they like doing, and you are all using it perfectly. So let's look at a question now for you guys. Which of these sentences is incorrect? Mark plays tennis in the summer. The children like cooking with their mother. We go painting in school. She hates playing the violin. My father takes lots of pictures with his camera. So which of those is incorrect? And I would say, guys, look at the verbs being used. Which is incorrect? And brilliant work, guys. Beulah, Mahmoud, Sarah, Ramya, Hiran. This is not an easy question, guys. Ziad, Hadir. Brilliant work, Sophie. Fantastic. It is number 3. We go painting in school. we do not use the verb go with painting. Okay, we would just say we paint in school. That would be the correct way to say it. So well done everyone, that's fantastic, and still answers coming in. Mushfika, Ibrahim, brilliant. Well done everybody. Now guys, we saw those verbs like, love and hate and how they change the sentence. But what type of verbs are they? Okay, so there are actually two types of verbs. We have stative verbs and we have active verbs. And now we are going to look at the difference between them. So, what are stative verbs? Well, stative verbs express a state rather than an action. So, we know that verbs are usually the action words of a sentence. They're the action in a sentence. But not all verbs are actions. So that is where we use the term stative verbs. So they express a state. They usually relate to thoughts, emotions, senses, and states of being. And something to note is these cannot be used in continuous tenses. So stative verbs cannot be used in continuous tenses. So let's have a look at some stative verbs. Here are some here. Like, need, want, believe, understand, own, know. So look, these are relating to thoughts. I like something. Emotions. I believe or I love. Senses. I hear. Or states of being. I own. Okay? So they are not actions. Now, just to give some contrast, let's look at some active verbs. Now, active verbs are very easy. Go, drive, play, run, laugh, eat, talk. They are all active verbs. They are actions and they can be used in a continuous tense. And I can see Jerome saying, so the McDonald's ad is wrong. And you are completely correct, Jerome. The McDonald's ad, I've never had anyone point that out to me before, is incorrect English. So we all know the McDonald's tagline or slogan is I'm loving it. And that is incorrect English because we know that love is a stative verb and we cannot use it in a continuous tense. Okay? Yes, Sarah, exactly. An active verb, another word for an active verb is a dynamic verb. Okay? A dynamic verb. So, let's look at some examples in continuous tenses for these active verbs. We are driving to Paris for our vacation. Okay? We are driving to Paris for our vacation. That is a perfectly correct sentence. Thomas isn't laughing at Mark's jokes. Okay? So, our support staff, Thomas McGovern, he never laughs at my jokes. So, Thomas isn't laughing at Mark's jokes. Is Mark talking to his students? So again, talk is an active or a dynamic verb. Is Mark talking to his students? Now let's look at our stative verbs. I don't like surfing the web. So what do we think about this sentence, guys? And look at the next one. He is not wanting to go to the cinema. Do they believe in God? Mark is knowing all about English. So let's go through these 4 sentences, guys. And let's start with number 1. I don't like surfing the web. Do we think that sentence is okay or is it wrong? What do we think? Get your answers into the question box now. Okay, yes, everyone is saying it's okay, and you are correct. That sentence is fine because this is the present simple. I don't like. Okay, present simple. Now, what about sentence 2? He is not wanting to go to the cinema. He is not wanting to go to the cinema. And Mahmoud has already said it is wrong. Exactly. He is not wanting to go to the cinema. Want is a stative verb, so we cannot have it in a continuous tense. For this we would say he does not want to go to the cinema. He does not want to go to the cinema. What about number 3? Do they believe in God? What do we think about that, guys? Okay, yes, exactly. Shaima, Sumaya. That one is perfect. Do they believe? That is present simple. And finally, number 4, Mark is knowing all about English. So Mark is knowing all about English. And exactly, Maria, Florine, Sophie, it is wrong. We would say Mark knows all about English. Present simple, because know is a stative verb. So, just remember that stative verbs cannot be used in continuous tenses. Monique is saying Mark knows all about English. That is exactly right, Monique. You said it and not me. So guys, another question to make sure you're all keeping up. Which of these do you think is a stative verb? So I'm going to give you a list of verbs and I want you to tell me which one is a stative verb. To do, to be, to find, to smile, to push. Which of these do you think is a stative verb, guys? Which of these is not an action? And the first person I see with the correct answer is Yasser. So well done. And there's a lot of people getting this one wrong. Lots of people are saying smile, but smiling is an action. We can say, I am smiling right now, because I am. I am smiling right now. The correct answer is to be. To be. That is a stative verb. It is our main stative verb. It's the verb we always look at first. It describes your state. Okay? I am happy. I am sad. So that is most definitely a stative verb. So good work to everyone who got that one right. Anyone who got it wrong, don't worry too much. Just make sure to remember that. Now guys, moving on to the last part of tonight's webinar, we are going to look at the passive voice. Now, what is the passive voice and when do we use it? Well, we use it when we want to emphasize the object of a sentence. So we want to emphasize the object of a sentence. So the object or the recipient of the sentence becomes the subject. Now, don't worry if that sounds confusing, because remember, in a normal sentence, or what we call an active sentence, it goes like this: subject, verb, object. Now the subject in an active sentence we call the agent, the person or the thing doing the action. Okay, so we call it the agent. So it is the person or thing doing the action. Then we have the object, which is the recipient, the person or thing receiving receiving the action. Now, let's look at an active sentence. Mark teaches the students twice a week. That is an active sentence. Agent, verb, recipient. The students are the recipient. Now, what if we want to focus on the students? What if we don't care about Mark? God forbid. I hope everyone does care about me. But what if we don't care about Mark and we just care about the students? Then we would use the passive. And the form for the passive is the recipient is made the subject of the sentence. Then we have the verb to be and the past participle of the action verb. Now, remember, for the past participle, we add ed to the verb if it is a regular verb, and if it is irregular, unfortunately, you just have to learn it. Okay? So the past participle, or verb tree, sometimes it's called. So let's look at an example. And let's take this example. The students are taught twice a week. Now look, the students, the recipient, has become the subject. So the students are taught twice a week. Now, taught is the past participle of teach. Taught. It's irregular. So we have our recipient, the students, the verb to be, are, and our past participle, taught. Twice a week. Now, who can tell me, why do I have by Mark in brackets here? Who can tell me? Why do I have by Mark in brackets? The agent. Why do I have the agent in brackets? Who is the first person that can tell me? Inoka, fantastic. And Ramona, brilliant. Shaima, Sharif, brilliant work. Because it is not necessary. We do not need to say it. We can just say the students are taught twice a week. If you want, you can say the students are taught twice a week by Mark, but we don't care about Mark, so we don't have to say it. Let's look at some more examples. I am employed by Shaw Academy. There we have employ is our verb, and it's regular, so we add ed. If it's a regular verb, we just add ed. I am employed by Shaw Academy. The lights are switched off every night. Again, another regular verb, switched. We add ed. And here, we don't care by who. The lights are switched off every night. It doesn't matter if Mark does it. It doesn't matter if Nadia or Sama or Walla or Foz or Florine does it. All we care is that the lights are switched off every night. Now, let's look at one here. Apple was founded in 1976. So, Apple was founded in 1976. Or we can include more information. Apple was founded in 1976 by Steve Jobs. So you can see how it's not always necessary. You can include it if you want. Now, when do we see the passive voice being used? So we use it when we want to emphasize the object or the recipient, when that's what we care about. But when do we see it in real life? Well, we will always see the passive voice when you are describing a process, okay? Now, let's look at an example of describing a process. And what better one than one of my favorite things, peanut butter, guys. So we are going to look at how peanut butter is made, and that is a process. So we are going to describe the process of how peanut butter is made, and it's going to be in the passive because we don't care who does it, we just care how. Okay, so let's start with step 1. The shells are removed from the peanuts. Okay, so the shells, which are these parts here, are removed. Remove is a regular verb, so it's just ed. The shells are removed from the peanuts. By who? We don't care. We do not care who removes them. We just care that they are removed. What about step 2? The peanuts are roasted in a large oven. So roasted just means like cooked, okay? They are roasted, they are cooked, like you roast a chicken in the oven, okay? So the peanuts are roasted in a large oven. Step 3. Their skin is now removed using water. All in the passive, okay? Their skin is now removed using water. Step 4. The peanuts are ground into butter by a big machine. So the peanuts are ground into butter by a big machine. And the final step, the butter is packed into jars and the labels are put on. So the butter is packed into jars and the labels are put on. So there is 2 different parts in that sentence. Is packed and the labels are put on. Now, there are 2 irregular past participles here. We have ground and we have put. And they, of course, like I said, are irregular. Ground is the past participle of the verb to grind, and that means like to crush, to grind. And then put is the past participle of the verb to put. It is irregular because it stays the same. Put, put, okay? And it's the same with the verb cut. It stays the same, and that's what makes it irregular. So that is an example of the passive voice being used, guys, when we don't care about who is performing an action. So let's have a look at our final question of the day now to make sure you are all still with me. So which of these sentences is not a passive construction? The boys are clean going to school. Pictures are painted by artists. The dishes are washed every morning. Harry Potter is written by J.K. Rowling. So which of those is not a passive construction? And I see so many right answers. Every single person is getting these answers correct. That's fantastic. Mustafa, Regina, Natalie, fantastic. Maya, Maria, Agnes, Isabel, Alina, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Sanjeev, Ufa, Alina, Maria. It's great to see that almost 1 hour into the lesson you are all still with me. Oh, what has happened here? Oh, there we are. There's our correct answer. The boys are clean going to school. That is not passive, that is active, because we have the boys are clean. There is only one verb being used here, and it's the verb to be. So that's an active sentence. The rest we have are painted, are washed, is written. And written is an irregular, it is the past participle of write. So guys, that brings us to the end of today's lesson, and I just want to remind you all that the recordings can be accessed in your members area. So if you missed lesson 1 and you want to watch it, or if you just want to watch lesson 1 or this lesson again, then log in to shawacademy.com and you will find the recordings in your members area. Also, this Friday I will be uploading the weekly assignment. So every Friday I upload an assignment. So assignment 1 will go into your members area this Friday, and all of that can be accessed on shawacademy.com. So make sure to check out those, guys. So what have we learned in tonight's lesson? You explored the different present tenses. You developed your expressions of frequency. We built your vocabulary and we looked at free time activities. You learned about stative and active verbs, and you were introduced to passive constructions. So guys, remember to attend all of the lessons live, to ask questions in real time, because you benefit the most. So, just like all of you have had your questions answered either by me or my fantastic support team, it really is best to attend live. We're here to help, so contact us any time. Now, what about our next lesson, lesson 3? And that is what happened in the past. And in lesson 3, you will explore the different past tenses. You will be introduced to quantifiers. You will learn to make requests and offers. You will hone your spoken English, where we will be softening your negative comments. And you will master the use of relative clauses, guys. So remember, attend live and your knowledge will grow. And of course, we have that fantastic giveaway in lesson 6. So every time you attend live, you are entered into that draw. And remember, for attending this lesson live, you receive the toolkit for this lesson. So in your members area, you will have access to the webinar slides and the summary notes for this lesson, guys. So make sure to go in and download those for yourself. With that, I'm going to finish tonight's lesson. I want to say a big thank you, or Gurv Mila Mahagut. That means 1,000 thank yous in Irish. Gurv Mila Mahagut. So that means 1,000 thank yous. Okay, so I will see you all next week for lesson 3. Thank you all again for being so interactive and having such great questions. And Dashe is writing Irish back to me. Tame Gamat, that means I am very good, exactly. So guys, I will see you all next week for lesson 3. Don't forget to check out your weekly assignment on Friday in the members area. Have a brilliant weekend, and I'll see you all next week, guys. Bye now.